The sun is about to come up. I'm hidden in my floating blind with ducks all around me. It's a brisk 12 degrees this morning and I couldn't ask for better conditions. Let's rewind a little bit and I'll show you my process that I go through when using my floating blind to photograph wildlife. If you followed my channel for a while now, you know that I love to use my homemade floating blind to photograph ducks and other waterfowl. This is a regular outing for me, something I do multiple times each year and sometimes even many times each month. So what conditions are best for using a floating blind, and what am I looking for when I choose a new spot to try out, like the location that I'm in today? Over the years, I've found that smaller bodies of water are best when using a floating blind. Slow-moving rivers, marshes, ponds, and small lakes all help consolidate the ducks and make them much easier to locate and photograph. These types of areas also tend to have calmer water, which makes things better when getting video footage of the birds. All of my favorite locations meet these criteria, which make them perfect for photography. As you can see, this new location that I'm trying out this morning is not small by any means. But because it's so cold, the majority of the water is frozen, which effectively consolidates the ducks as if I was in a smaller body of water. The trade-off is just sitting in this frozen water for hours at a time to get my photos, but you know, it's always worth it. Another very important thing to keep in mind when using a floating blind is what time of year it is, which will effectively determine which species are available for you to photograph. If I were to use this blind in this area 4 months from now, I would probably only see mallards, coots, herons, and egrets. By learning about bird migration patterns and seasons, I know that by coming out today, even though it's well below freezing, I'm able to largely expand what species are available for me to photograph in my area. Each region will vary, and each body of water within a specific region may contain different species based on their unique needs and variations within each habitat. Because this water here is so shallow, I expect to see mostly species of dabbling ducks today. If I were looking for a species of diving duck, I would select a different location with deeper water. This is a very important detail to keep in mind when selecting a body of water to use with your floating blind, especially if you're looking for a specific species to photograph. I always recommend when using a floating blind to minimize as much of your movement as possible. I've seen a lot of videos floating around out there of other photographers using these blinds, and they're constantly repositioning the blind or even pursuing birds through a marsh or pond or whatever to get the better shot. I found that when I do that, I get drastically worse results versus when I determine beforehand where I'm going to set up the blind and then just set it up and stay put and photograph the birds as they pass me by. Let's put that to the test this morning and see what we end up getting. I set up this morning in the ideal spot with the sun behind me and a pleasant background to work with. I'm just loving these results so far. It always pays off to plan where you'll set up beforehand so that you can already be in the best position possible when the birds show up. One of the toughest lessons I've learned in my time using these floating blinds is to always be scouting out new areas and finding new locations to photograph in. About 1.5 years ago, every single one of my favorite go-to floating blind spots all became unusable due to weather and construction-related changes in water levels. Because of this, I had to start looking for new locations and still have yet to find some really good alternatives. So even if you have some good spots, always be on the lookout for new locations to try out. Things have been great so far this morning. Things started off with a huge group of American widgeons, the biggest group of American widgeons I've ever seen before. Probably 150 of them or more, and I was able to photograph quite a few of them. You know how much I love getting ducks flapping their wings. It's one of my favorite poses. and I was able to get quite a few images that I think I'm happy with them. I haven't checked them yet, but just from glancing at them at the back of the camera, I'm happy with them. And I was able to get some video footage of that as well. And then a group of northern shovelers came in, and I was able to photograph them as well in some beautiful light before the clouds rolled in again. Just a lot of fun. Some really beautiful species out here. The ice has consolidated the ducks quite a bit. Even so, it's still quite a large body of water that I'm dealing with out here. So some of the ducks have moved off to other areas, and I'm just getting what I can, whether they're coots or mallards or whatever it is out here. There's always something to photograph, and it has just been wonderful so far. Let's get back to it. In all my years of using these floating blinds for photography, I have learned so much, and I've got another video right here with even more tips for you to get the best results when using a floating blind. Thank you so much for watching. I always appreciate your support. If you've enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up and consider subscribing if you haven't already. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.